Maybe you haven't heard of John Carney, but I guarantee you've heard John Carney. He's that famous guy with that recognizable voice that has brought laughter and levity to radio listeners for almost 3 decades.
I look busy. Like I'm doing things. Very important reading these papers.
Now a morning DJ at Fresh 102.5 in St. Louis, his down-to-earth personality and big smile is still his style. Obviously, there's a legacy here. Jack Carney is your father, and you're John Carney, of course, and you've kind of continued the radio broadcasting. Tell us a little bit about how you got into, obviously, the radio broadcast business.
By the time I got into college, I was studying psychology. I was a percussion major. I was going to be an astronaut. I was going to be a ballerina. The circus was looking good. The radio thing came after Dad honestly recommended that I do something else.
Well, you're doing a fabulous job, and you know, we want to bring this full circle. Lake of the Ozarks, obviously, you were on air there at KLDN.
The studio kind of sat below street level a little bit. And the studio was back in what was probably a closet in whatever the building was before, and I could reach everything. I had reel-to-reels, I had turntables, I had other electronic things, and it was all in a very tight area. So it was handy, you didn't have to move. But there was one day, there was torrential storms. And I was on the air, and the water starts coming in from the alley into the studio door, and I'm in a storm, surrounded by electrical equipment, about shin high in water, trying to remain very calm and say, hey, we've got another one from the Oak Ridge Boys coming up. And help me! I was terrified. And I'm thinking, what am I doing with my life?
Give us some names of some interviews you've done.
People ask about favorites, and it really depends on your criteria. I mean, the ones that have the best stories, people like Bob Costas, people like Richard Simmons. You know that no matter what you bring to the table, it doesn't matter. They got the great stories. They've got the, you could say, so tell me about that time doing the Olympics in Sydney, and I could leave. I could leave for a half hour and Bob would still be telling great stories, or you know, whoever it is. So those are the best, the wind up and let them go conversations. So
you're a family man. Tell us a little bit about the family. And
I have a 1 and a 2-year-old and a 12 and a 15-year-old. Yeah. I cry a lot.
I don't know about that. I tell you what, this whole experience with you, you know, obviously you're well thought of, your foundation, you know, you do so much for the community besides your personality here on the radio and on the airwaves. So tell a little bit about the foundation.
All of us in this business, and I'm sure you get it too as a business owner and running the magazine and doing the TV, people want you to come to the parties, maybe do their auction or MC something or talk to a luncheon group. And I didn't say no, and I would really be out 100+ days a year doing charity events, which was all fine and good, but at the end of the day, I couldn't put my finger on the difference that I made with anybody and with anything. But there were a lot of organizations that weren't getting attention, and I decided to start a foundation, pick some children-oriented charities that weren't so highly recognizable, and because I had a mic every day, why not use it for good and not evil always, and bring some attention to these organizations. That grew into getting attuned to their needs and that they needed money for stuff. So the cookbooks were born. We did 2 cookbooks. We do a fundraising event every year around Halloween that's a big gain for us. We do a trivia night. We do a golf tournament. So it's all grown out of the wanting to focus my philanthropy.
I think it's interesting that you have that foundation and it is circled around children, and you, through the interview process for the magazine and as well for the Inside Access show, you're just such a kid at heart, and I wish, you know, how do you bottle that up and keep it? I mean, you know, how do you do it? And you're up every morning for the morning show. I don't know how you're doing that either.
I don't either. Now that you bring it up, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. The kid at heart thing is easy because I stopped maturing on just about every level at about 17. You can ask my wife, any of my friends, people that I work for. I'm still much more interested in how to get milk to squirt out of your nose than I am with what's going to happen with oil prices with Muammar Gaddafi.
You've had quite an interesting life from, you know, from California to the lake and now in St. Louis, and you've made a big mark on listeners everywhere. So what's your one big advice that you want to share?
Well, it depends who I'm talking to. If it's a high school kid that's going into college, I would say stay in school or you'll end up on the radio. I think it's to never really take yourself too seriously, because you get the bills, there's the constant pressure of that, there's the stress of work, there's maintaining relationships with coworkers, with spouses, with lovers, with friends, with children, and you can easily get really mired in their significance and the long-term effects, and you just can't. You just got to step away and know you did the best you could do, and that will lead to the best night's sleep you can hope for.
You've been the best.
Well, thank you for doing it. Thanks for taking the time. I kind of thought I was being punked initially, but yeah. Now that I see it, I believe you.
It was an honor. So I really appreciate it. So, LO Profile Magazine Inside Access, we'll be right back after this.